Hey folks, it's Egwin here from Beyond Systems. Today I have an update for you regarding hip mobility and hamstring mobility. Now before we get started with the video, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and if you want to support me in being able to do more free content like this, and please also check out my Patreon page down below. Alright, other than that, let's get right into it. Today we are talking about hip mobility and hamstring mobility. This is an exercise that you can use especially when you've been sitting for a long time, or you just really want to get blood pumping and flowing again in your thighs, in your hamstring, in your hip and pelvic region. It's also a great starting exercise to gently work your way towards the ability to do a full squat, and it's also an amazing tool to really get this coordinational aspect in your hip joints sorted out properly. You'll really be able to differentiate between different muscle groups when you perform this exercise, and so those are the benefits in a nutshell. Here is how the basis version of this exercise actually looks like. We are standing in a much wider than shoulder width stance, so I'm really quite far apart with my legs. The inside edges of the feet are parallel towards each other, and I'm gonna show it to you from the side first. You'll know in a second why. From here, I keep my spine in a gentle upright position. I don't roll with my spine. What I do is I tilt my whole torso forward in my hip joints. Now, for some of you, this might be possible like literally all the way down to the ground. For some of you, it might only be possible just a couple of degrees before you feel your hamstrings jumping in and holding your pelvis tight. Now, here comes the important thing regarding our legs. We are in this much wider than shoulder width stance, but we unlock our knees to the front. So don't block your knees all the way back. We unlock our knees. We have this tilt from the pelvis, and as the pelvis tilts, the whole upper body, literally like an indicator, tilts with it to the front. Go as far to the front as you can without rolling your shoulders, and really make sure that you feel this opening in the rear of the hip joints back here. So from this position, just tilt to the front like so, remaining a pretty much straight upper body. And now I'm just simulating one version here, depending on your flexibility. Like I said, some people might actually be able to drop all the way through the legs down. I'm not going to do anything like that right now, because I really want this video also to be something that every single beginner can work with, and also advanced people. So from here, you simply tilt to the front. And now, once you reach this maximum level of possible tilt for the current leg structure, you start to bend the knees even further, allowing your pelvis, due to tension and pressure that's taken off the hamstrings, because we bend the knee. Now you allow for more tilt in the pelvis, but still remaining this straight spine. From this position, what we do now is simply we shift our weight to the right side, come back to center, we shift our weight to the left side, and come back to center. Now I'm going to show you this move. That's the first of a couple of progressions I'm going to talk about in this video. I'm going to show you this move from the front. We have this leg position, as a couple of times in the past already. The ground is uneven here. My right leg is lower than the left, but I think, well, that's just nature, right? There is no purpose in why my right leg is deeper than the left. Anyway, from here, I tilt to the front. Now I bend my knees even further. And see, now I shift my weight to the left. I come back to center, and I shift my weight to the right. One thing that's extremely important is make sure that you do not shift your weight all the way over and outside of, for instance, the right leg. So I don't shift my weight all the way out until my right knee pulls in and has to pull in. I always try to maintain this structure: hip joint, knee, ankle joint, toes. So I want to work with this plane, and the only thing that I'm doing is I'm shifting that plane in a more vertical position, and I'm shifting it back down. So when you take a look at that, right now my legs, they are angled outside. I roll in, I shift my weight to the left. Now I have left hip joint, left knee joint, and left foot all in one plane on top of each other. The knee is not turned out, the knee is also not pulled in. That's extremely important in order not to hurt your knees. Now in this first progression of the exercise alone, you'll already feel the hamstrings working back here around the hip joint area. Now why are we doing it like this? An extremely important part in understanding this exercise is where we center our weight. And the trick here is you do not shift your weight to the ball of the foot when you come lower. On the contrary, you stay rather in your mid and heel foot area. So from here, I'm gonna tilt down, and instead of going all the way to the balls of my feet, I literally sink down between my feet, but still with the main weight being on top of my heels. This really gets this coordinational aspect of opening the knee to the front, opening the hip to the rear, internalized. And this is one of the most important aspects that we need to work on when we actually look to get a deep squat like I mentioned before, or something like that. This is also one of the possible ways to unlock the hamstrings. Why? Look at it like this. In this position, rather than a stretching position, a regular stretching position, you still have to work a lot with your quads. If you do not work with your quads in this position, you just simply, your pelvis will just simply want to drop down. For some people that might be a mobility problem in the ankles or in the hip joints. And that's why we do this exercise as a starting point to a couple of progressions that eventually can lead to deep squat, to better strength and mobility in the legs, knees, and most importantly, hip joints in this specific case. Now the second progression of this exercise is the following. I'll show this to you slightly from the side and then from different angles again. From here, I'm gonna simply, once again, tilt to the front in my hip joint. Really use your hands here to make sure it's in no way a bending of the lumbar spine. It's really a tilting of the whole pelvic ring with the upper body attached to it. Then I have this sinking in. Now from here, I try to push my pelvis, my buttocks, up a little further, while once again stretching the legs out just a tiny little bit. That's different than to the first version. The first version was simply a passive getting position and sink down deeper and then shift your weight from the left to the right. Now we add this aspect of, once we have this quite massively flexed position in my hip joint, which is enabled through the open stance, plus also through this bent knees. Now we also try to push the buttocks back up again. This obviously, since this is an extension in the knee joint, this will obviously put a little bit more pressure on the hamstrings, put a little bit more tension on the hamstrings. So you'll feel that maybe your pelvis will want to tilt, and you just go to the edge of that. You do not really allow your pelvis to tilt, you just go to the edge of your pelvis tilting, then ease out a little bit. the whole thing looks like that. I come down, whoop, get lower, and from this position I'm simply trying to push my buttocks a little bit higher and then relax and ease back down again. Now I push my buttocks back up a little bit and I relax and ease back down again. I push my buttocks back up a little bit and relax and ease back down again. Just a couple of repetitions, 2, 3, 4, then come out, shake it out a little bit and relax. Those are the first 2 progressions for this exercise. I'll post a couple of more. The very important thing with this last pumping motion, first of all, when you come out of it, you'll immediately realize, oh wow, this whole lower region from the pelvis down is now actually opened, and it allows for much more blood flow, and it really feels softer, more grounded, more connected to, especially also sensomotorically connected, because you have more sensomotoric feedback, you had a lot of sensation coming through those lower regions. One word of caution: when you do this pumping exercise, make sure to gently activate your core. And with your core, I mean your transverse abdominis muscle. To activate the transverse abdominis muscle, it's really this picture of trying to pull your navel towards your spine. This is important because when you are in this position and you pump up and you still don't have this complete sensomotoric fine-tuning and you pump up too much, you try to leave the upper body down, but you also want to push the lower body up, then you might put a lot of torque, a lot of pressure in your lumbar spine, and namely on the intervertebral discs in the lumbar spine. However, if you activate the transverse abdominis muscle in this position, so down here, you just simply think, pull the navel in towards your spine, and then do those gentle, small pumping up motions, then your spine will be protected, and then when you come back up, you just release, let go, and shake it out a little bit. Alright, that's the exercise for today. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment box down below. As I said, progression to that will be coming soon. Other than that, have a wonderful time. Please make sure to like, share and subscribe, and hit the notification button at the end of this video if you want to stay up to date and see more content like that. Have a wonderful time. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.